Top of the Props is brought to you by Barkingham Palace Dog Grooming, 1/10 Hollyley Road, Lemire. Find them on Facebook. Barkingham Palace Dog Grooming Macarthur, where every pup's a king or queen. And GameView. GameView is a statistical application that allows you to track, analyse and improve your team's and players' performance by capturing team and individual player statistics. Find out more, gameview.com.au. And we have a brand new episode of Top of the Props tonight. It's been a few weeks, but I truly, as I just said to this man before we started recording, really appreciate his time tonight. It's a fella that played 100 NRL games. He's a premiership winner at the mighty Manly Sea Eagles, and he went on to play another 139 games in the Super League for both London and the Crusaders. A total of 239 first-grade games. It's Mr. Mark Bryant. Thank you very much, mate, for being on Top of the Props.
Oh, thanks for having me. Always good to stick with the old props fraternity. So, it's nice to get 100 games of the NRL up. And, it was certainly a different experience overseas, but one that was really good.
We're going to get to all of it, but I actually want to start in 2007 and something that I know which will pique the interest of many fans out there. And it's not even Manly or Melbourne fans. It's just rugby league fans in general. The rivalry between the Manly Sea Eagles and the Melbourne Storm. So let's start in 2007, of all places.
Yep.
So you guys ran back and forward first and second all year.
Yep.
You know, you basically swapped top spots several times through the first half of the period before Melbourne kind of held their spot through the second part of the period of the season. Eagles, you win your first 6 in 2007. First place leading into round 13. And of all days to play, you'd think it'd be a Friday night blockbuster. If you remember this one, Saturday afternoon, 5:30 kickoff versus the Storm at Brookvale. Can you just tell me off the bat, as a player that went through this period and lived to tell the tale, because there was some brutal contests, what was it about Manly versus Melbourne games in that period that got everyone so fired up?
Oh, mate, it's funny, you look back now and I still, when the Storm play, I mean, we're playing them this weekend and unfortunately, we're not travelling that crash hot, but I just think that all good rivalries generally, come from the better teams and, certainly at that point in both clubs' history, we're both, very good teams, and both playing good footy. And I don't know, it was just something about them, previously, obviously the Silvertails and the Fibros and all that sort of stuff, back in the day. But this one sort of just, it grew out of two good, rugby league teams, and it was an absolute cracker, and still is today. An unbelievable rivalry. And 2007 was a great year. Obviously plenty of good memories, and we would have rathered that game, probably on a Sunday afternoon at Brookvale with a packed hill and a sunny afternoon. But it was a I mean the season. We made it to the grand final, and obviously they touched us up. But I think the record books have something different to show about that these days, anyway.
I think I said round 13 then. It was actually round 11. But who in this period, who hated the other more? Did Melbourne hate Manly more, or did you guys hate the Storm more?
Oh, geez, I don't know. See, we always, typical Des Hasler style, were always under the radar. You'd never get any of us, shooting our mouth off in the press or anything like that. And I don't know. I think that I know that we absolutely hated them, and every game, that was played, it was always spoken about. And they got Smith and Slater and Cronk, and they had such a Inglis, Folau at one stage down there as well. So they're a really good team, and I just know that secretly behind closed doors, that we were always up for the challenge, and we knew it was going to be a tough game, but we wanted to definitely give as good as what we got.
It's funny that you brought up the Silvertails versus Fibros, because way back when, a lot of fans will remember the Magpies, and I think Roy Masters started it all, and I think it was more to do with the fact that he was trying to get his team up against Manly, who had a pretty good side, but the Magpies had their own great side. But funnily enough, in that era, and as a West Tigers fan, who didn't really have much to do with Manly and really never liked Manly. But it was funny because, to use a wrestling term, you talk about baby faces and bad guys. All of a sudden, you've got the Melbourne Storm, who are these bad guys from Victoria. Everything's given to them on a silver platter. You've almost got to cheer for Manly. I mean, it was a crazy thing.
I know. It's sort of, the lesser of two evils, because that's the thing about Seagulls fans is that, passionate, unbelievably passionate fans, but so many people absolutely despise the Seagulls, which is great. We always loved that and relished it. We knew that, that people didn't like us, but hey, when you get into, there's a rivalry with Parramatta, of course, from those games in the 80s, and obviously the Fibros and the Silvertails as well. But it's funny that, a lot of people love to hate the Seagulls, but it's something that it's certainly in my time at the club that we knew and we used as a secret motivation. And we're glad that we being playing the Mexicans south of the border, we picked up a lot of support, certainly in those grand finals as well. But a lot of people just love to hate the the Storm as well, which was awesome for us.
And that round 11 game, it was Matt Orford, a former Melbourne Storm star himself, who got you guys over the line 13-12. I mean, we're going to talk about Ben Kennedy and what he brought to the club a little bit later. But was Matt Orford the final piece in the puzzle for Manly?
I think he was. Obviously, I got to the club in 2005, and that was when BK arrived and Brent Kite as well. But I think he was. We'd had obviously Mick Monaghan was at halfback at one stage, and when he moved into hooker for 2007, which was definitely I think Mick's his best position. He went on to win the Lance Todd Trophy overseas, and he may have belted me a couple of times over there, the prick, but. That's all right. He's still one of my good mates today. But I think he was. Ox was just he's just tough. He was into everything. And for the size of the guy, he was he didn't shy away from just getting up and belting people. But I think the organisation that he got us, as well as guys, when you got Jamie Lyon, in there as well, and when Killer sort of moved into that 6. Into the 5'8" role, it just gave us that real great dynamic on both sides. And when you look at the team now, I mean, geez, Matai Bell, Robertson on the wing. You had the Wolfman obviously came in 2008, but Chris Hicks on that wing, and Hicksy was a great finisher. I think he was. With him and Steve Bell coming in from Melbourne in 2007, I think that was the final piece of the puzzle that we needed, because obviously we had Glenn Stewart and Anthony Watmo in the back row. Beaver was just everywhere, the bastard scoring tries left, right, and centre, and making all of the rest of us look bad. We had great strike power. Steve Matai, I mean, geez, Stevie was just a machine, not only in defence, but he's a props best friend, because if we were out on our feet, and which was a lot of the time, because we were doing a lot of tackling and all that sort of stuff, Stevie would get behind us and he'd take 2 carries in a set, making 10, 15 metres each carry and get us on the front foot. He it was a great team. It certainly was a great team, a great bunch of blokes as well.
Let's go to the 2007 finals. South make their first finals appearance since 1989, and I think that was on the back of, from memory, West Tigers and the Broncos both fell over in the final round, so South got through. You hammer the Bunnies. At Brookvale. Then you smash the Cowboys 28-6 in the prelim at the SFS. The Storm's form line is pretty good too. They beat the Broncos 40-0, and they also beat Parramatta down there, I think at Colonial Stadium, as it was called then, 26-10. Did you, all the way through the finals, all the way through 2007, was there any chatter in the team saying that you guys were the only ones that could knock Melbourne off?
Well, I think it sort of snuck up on us a bit. I think there was one game where we beat West Tigers. Actually, we beat them at and it's where Brett Stewart scored that unbelievable try. But we beat them at Brookvale, and they were tipped as a red hot premiership favourite. Obviously, they won the comp a couple of years earlier. They were travelling really well. I think that gave us the confidence, certainly, that hey, we're a chance here, and certainly me as sort of being relatively green in finals footy. I played one the year before in 2006 for BK's last game, and we got smacked in the ass by Trent Barrett and the Dragons. But I think that there's a couple of pivotal games through the year that gave us that confidence. And because we got that home final, obviously Fortress Brookvale was always a place that we loved to play and refused to get beaten on. And so that first final, was great. I think we expected to get through that. But then obviously the North Queensland, we're a good team, very good team. That Carl Webb up there at that stage was running really good. Obviously Thurston, who was one of the world's best.
Luke O'Donnell was there by then as well too, wasn't he?
I think he was too. Yeah. I mean, I don't think. I played schoolboys. What was that? CHS in 1998. I think it was.
98, yep.
With Luke, and mate, he had the body of Adonis back then. He was ridiculous. I was a 17-year-old kid with a dog's body from Cootamundra, and you had this bloke come in who he was ripped to the absolute shithouse, and I mean that in every respect of the word. He had a couple of injuries, but he was tearing through people. Matt Bowen, so they had a really, really dangerous team. So we sort of, we knew we had to be on our game, but we came away with the goods there too, which was awesome, and sort of put us into that the final big dance, which is the biggest game for a lot of us.
Looking back at the 2007 grand final, and remembering too the old saying, you got to lose one to win one, and Melbourne, who were the hot favourites the year before against the Broncos, just got out-muscled by Brisbane, a very, very experienced team. So the following year, you go into the 2007 grand final. In my opinion, I looking back on it, the first thing that pops into my head is you guys have got to, you can't go down early, and basically what happens at the start of the game, early on anyway, Anthony Quinn scores, then halfway through the first half, Inglis crashes over. It's 10-0 to Melbourne already. Storm dominating there. Probably should have been up by more than that.
It should have been up. Yeah, I remember half time, and that's the thing. Yeah, and that is. It's probably true that you've got to lose one to win one. It certainly, worked out, for us that year. They had us smashed across the park. Like, we were out on our feet, and I think it was it 10-4 at half time?
Yeah, Matt got one just before the break.
Yeah, Stevie got one just before the break, but they were leaps and bounds in front of us. It was at that point where if they didn't have Inglis, putting one of those massive spirals up in the air, they'd put it out, and they'd just jog down. We'd have to have a 20-metre restart, which back then you had to wait till everyone was set. They'd set their line, and they were a great defensive team, and and they played really, really smart footy, and mate, we hung in there for that first half, but I think we were shot ducks at half time. There's no way that we were going to be able to come back. They made us do so much defence that we were just blown. So it was disappointing, but full credit to the Storm. They had a game plan and it worked for them.
Well, I'll get it from the horse's mouth. I'll get it from someone that was on the field and played that night. One of my brothers is a Manly fan. I don't know how, because he was brought up in Campbelltown, and I think he's been to one Manly game in his whole life, and I hope he's listening.
What a legend.
Yeah, and a couple of my best mates are Manly fans too, also from Campbelltown, no idea. But Mark, I want to ask you this. There's still chatter around the pubs when the 2007 grand final comes up about the bomb in the second half to Brett Stewart, and when Billy Slater comes through and Michael Crocker comes through and hit him, which at the time was a clean shot in 2007. I mean, someone probably would have got sent off if they'd done that now. But if Brett Stewart stays on the field and that doesn't happen, does that make any difference to what was going to happen in the second half anyway?
Oh, do you know what? I think that was a setup. That was set up play. And do you know what? It was within the rules and it was fair game. And Croc, you know what? I absolutely hated him when we were playing him, as all the Manly did. Since we retired, I've had a few beers with him, mate. He's an unbelievable bloke. And he's such a great player, hard bastard. And it was within the rules. What would have happened? I still think Melbourne would have won the game. I think that we were still out on our feet too much. I don't think we could have clawed that back. But Snake's such a pivotal, was such a pivotal, player in that team. Our attack sort of, always revolved, around him and getting him into open space. So mate, I think, it may have had an effect on the scoreline. I honestly believe, although it's hard to say, that I think that Melbourne still would have beaten us, regardless whether Snake had been carried off or not.
Doesn't Manly have a great lineage of fullbacks, and they just continually bring a new one in? You talk about Edie, then it was Ridge, and then Brett Stewart. He was the Prince of Brookvale, and he was such a freak. And being at like a I was in my early 20s, whatever, mid-20s, whatever it was, when Brett Stewart, he was just so dominant. And now they got Tommy Turbo. But can you explain for people out there who younger Manly fans or younger Rugby League fans in general who kind of remember Brett Stewart a little bit, but I guess it's all about the star of the now, right, in the NRL, because there's always a new one. But how good was Brett Stewart on his day?
Oh, unbelievable. When you look at him and Glenn, Gifty, I think, is alongside, even Beaver as all-round best footballers that I ever played with or against. He could do it all. But Snake was just a freak. The speed that he had, and there's nothing better as a front rower when you've been busting your ass and you look up and he's in open space, because you could pretty much just turn around and then start walking back for the kickoff. And one thing that people didn't notice about is just how tough and how good he was defensively as well. If you look at some of the, you look at all the tries that he scored, which are just freakish, and some of the passes and things that he's got away as try assists. But if you go back and look at his highlights reel of some of the try-saving tackles that Snake made, there's some freakish stuff in there. And for us, he was just, everything that they say about him is true, and probably a little bit more on that. He was just an unbelievable player, and and in all facets, of the game.
So the final thought, the final comment from you on the 2007 grand final, because we're going to go way back before that after this, but did Des Hasler or the team, from your memory, was there any comment or was there anything said in the dressing rooms after that loss, in the bowels of Homebush, after that game? Melbourne had won by a country mile. Was there anything said on or planning for next year in 2008, or was it just, be proud of what you've already done this year?
Oh, I mean, we walked in. You can't explain, having lost the grand final and been flogged, and then gone on and won a grand final by the margin that we did. The feeling, complete polar opposite. I remember falling down on the ground after the game and looking up, and I was so embarrassed. And I looked up, and Matt King was celebrating, and I played a lot of junior footy with Kingy, and he's a great bloke, except I hated him that day. But it's there was nothing said. I mean, John Howard, the Prime Minister, walked in, and my dad was in the sheds, and I grabbed a couple of beers, and I gave the Prime Minister one, and we had a beer, and then mate, that was about it. We just couldn't wait to get back and and just get on the piss and just try to forget about it, try and numb the wounds a little bit. But there was nothing sort of said then, and certainly as we came back for the next year, that's where things started to evolve and talk, and never as with Des, never anything said outside, but it really, I don't know, as a rugby league player and a professional, that hits you hard. Look at some of the performances that get turned in by some of these clubs these days, and some of these individuals, and it's like they don't even care sometimes. But as a man and having as much pride in the jersey that all of us did, and certainly myself, that we wanted to right that wrong. And I always tell the story. I just played for free in 2008 just for another crack to right that wrong. Luckily, we had a couple of great inclusions. We discovered the Wolfman, who's an all in all lunatic, and I love him to death. Josh Perry came down. Teddy was awesome for us. He gave us an extra bit of size and mongrel up front, that we needed as well. So we got the opportunity to right that wrong. And funnily enough, it was against the Storm, which was great.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You were born in Cowra. Where did you play your junior footy back in the day?
So so I was born in Cowra. My dad was a copper. So we ended up moving from Cowra to Newcastle up the Malabula Panthers. I lived in a place called Lemon Tree Passage. So I played there till I was about 11. Dad got out of the police force and we moved to Cootamundra. I call Cootamundra home. I went to play out there and was signed for the Raiders out of high school at 17. So played a lot of my junior footy out there. Played first grade out there at 17 under Les Boyd. Boydie was the first grade coach out there, and certainly learnt a lot off Boydie. And he actually ended up paving the way and making the phone call to open the channels down here at Manly. So Coota's where I call home, and the mighty Cootamundra Bulldogs. Are definitely the local team that I support.
Now, Les Boyd, I guess a lot of people out there don't realise how good Les Boyd was as a player, particularly for my club, but the Magpies. I wasn't even born when he played for the Magpies back then, but he was a great player. But a lot of people still remember him, or if they remember anything, it's the incident in State of Origin with Daryl Broman. But funnily enough, in another podcast I do called Hot Tub Rugby League Time Machine, a mate of mine, Albie Talaruko, was talking about this relationship Les Boyd had with Brian Johnston, who was a completely different fella to Les Boyd. But Boyd kind of took Johnston's kids under his wings and all this other stuff. Can you explain what Les Boyd was like off the field and how he helped your career? And
Boydie was a great bloke,
Yeah.
Boydie, obviously had that aura about him being Les, and you hear about the infamous stuff,
Yeah.
and when you get down to the nitty gritty of it with Boydie, he said, obviously Roy Masters in his ear, and that was the thing about, slapping each other to death in the sheds and going nuts, and that's what they do. Like they were going out there to fight. It was as much as a boxing match as it was a game of rugby league. And
every team had him. Every team had him.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Even we, speaking to Ian Thompson last night, we actually did a Golden Eagles podcast here last night talking to McGilla, and that's the thing. He said we were going out there to rip into the other pack, and we knew there was going to be a fight, and we just had to come out on top. Boydie, Boydie, when he talks about that, talks about obviously breaking Daryl Broman's jaw, and had a bit of laugh about it. Jake said, no one had heard of Daryl Broman until he broke his jaw, but that's just Boydie being a smart ass. I think Mark's actually a great guy. I've met him a few times, but that was the thing back then, and does he regret it? Yeah, probably. It cost him 18 months of his career, and but he was a freakish player. When you talk to a lot of the other guys, because I run the Golden Eagles Association. I started that when I retired down here for the Seagulls.
Yes,
getting all the old boys together and keeping together. Obviously, getting on the beers and having a good time. Down at Brookvale when we can, when there's not a global pandemic going on, that's for sure. But he was a freakish player. Low to the ground, strong, stocky, and just and just had that. He had plenty of lunatic there, which served him well. Playing in Sydney and in Australia, and definitely overseas for Warrington as well.
This is just off the top of my head, and I could be completely wrong, which I usually am, and people pull me up for this online, but there's a story about Les Boyd, and I don't know where I'm pulling this from, but it's from the back of the head somewhere about he got sent off for kicking someone in a test match in France, but someone kicked him first or something like that. I can't remember what the story is now. Do you have any idea of what I'm talking about or not?
I think I've heard something like that, and it would not surprise me.
No, but it wasn't him. It wasn't him. One of the Frenchies started it, but he got caught.
Oh, he got done for it. Oh,
yeah.
Shit. I have heard about this, something like that, him getting sent. I know that he's been sent off a few times, but yeah, I can't remember the absolute details of it, but we could just make it up and just run with it, because it seems you can do that these days anyway, and I'll just cop a bit of shit off Boydie next time I see him.
Well, look, if you put a good word in for me, I'd love to speak to him. As a Magpies fan, from the start, mate, if you can put a word in for me, that'd be great.
For sure.
Thank you very much. Let's move on and let's go to your Raiders debut. So round 11, 2002. So obviously you've been graded by Canberra. You come in after the Australian Schoolboys, which you mentioned in 1998, and you mentioned Luke O'Donnell. Mark Gasnier was in that team as well.
Yeah. So we had Who did we have? So we had Trent Estefio. He was played fullback, but he ended up being a front rower and down at Newcastle. They had Justin Hodges, Luke Burt, Ashley Harrison, Piggy Riddell, Brent Kite was in there, Alan Tongue. Who else was in there? Jamie Russo, Brett Finch, Snags was in there as well. Luke Brannigan. Mate, it was an unbelievable team.
You would have had some good fucking fun.
Oh, mate, yeah. Well, that was the thing back then. We were just, all these, bright-eyed kids, or some of us were a little bit more devious, Piggy Riddell being one. But, mate, yeah, I'd love to get us on for the reunion tour because it wouldn't be one day on the piss. It'd be a whole weekend.
Was it New Zealand? Did you guys tour New Zealand?
Yeah, tour New Zealand. Mate, yeah, it was good. It was good. I was a kid from Cootamundra and, I had all these guys and they were all, signed to clubs and playing with, these clubs and everything. And here was me just playing for the Cootamundra Bulldogs. I hadn't signed with a club or anything like that at this stage. So it was, it was awesome. It was good to look back on them. Yeah, we did a bit of a tour of New Zealand and, mate, and still got, that's the thing, all great guys and, it's good to catch up with them. It was good to catch up with them whilst we were playing against each other, but, everyone retired now. We don't see as much of each other, but as I said, it'd be a great reunion tour if we could do it.
So round 11, 2002, I've got two questions here. So this is your debut. You're off the bench against the Cowboys. Of all days, Sunday afternoon in 2002 against the Cowboys, I couldn't have imagined there would have been any more than 7 or 8K down there in the middle of winter in Canberra, but it is your debut. This is everything to you. This is the centre of the world. Two questions for you. How much do you remember about as you run onto the field and your first touch in first grade? And what was it like and under, quality leadership like Ruben Wiki and another fellow like Alan Tongue? What was that like back then?
Oh, mate, well, awesome. So I remember finding out, and Matt Elliott pulled me into his office, and and it was funny enough because my locker was next to Finchie's, and and I'd had a pretty rough start. Came out with great expectations out of high school, played in a trial match and busted my knee, and confidence went down and kicked around in 19s, and then might have had the world record for reserve grade games at one stage, but finally got my chance. I remember him telling me I come in and sat down next to Finchie, and Finchie he was that excited. He was a great bloke, and I remember we never felt the cold down there because you're just used to it. But having a guy particularly like Ruben Wiki and Jason Croker and Clinton Shifkovsky and guys like that who are just phenomenal people. Alan Tongue and I, obviously we played schoolboys together, but then became best mates. He's actually one of my groomsmen at my wedding, and he's just a great guy. And I remember running down the sideline, and I've never felt so light on my feet ever. Jogging down the sideline, about to go on, childhood dreams about to come true. It was awesome. And then got out there, and after about 2 minutes of first grade football, I was absolutely fucked. So nothing can prepare you for that. You go from flag to reserve grade or 19s or whatever it is, 20s to reserve grade, and it's a step up. You think, wow, this is pretty big. But then the step up to first grade, it's next level. So, and I remember, first carry, and I think it was John Buttigieg. Anyway, he
was a good player back then.
He was a big thing. Anyway, I remember hitting him. I don't know. He stunk. I remember just thinking to myself, Jesus Christ, he stinks, this bloke. Anyway, he was a big bastard. But we scored a try, and I'm back ready for the kickoff. I remember seeing Jason Croker, and Toots was an awesome bloke. Another great lunatic who'd be great. He's great on the drink and always got a good story. But I remember him from the sideline just screaming at me, and he's that excited that I was going to get to carry it off the kickoff. And mate, you don't take a backward step there. It was just full pedal as fast and hard as you could into the line. And it was great, mate. It was great. And family coming down, and it wasn't one of those fairy tale journeys to first grade for me. There was some ups and downs in there, and I had to play really, really, really consistent good footy for that entire 10 games. And I got there in the end and played a couple of games that year, and then Played none the next year. We won the reserve grade grand final, and then only a couple in 2004. And Matt Elliott, saw me as a reserve grader, and that I just sort of fit in for first grade here and there. And obviously, I disagreed, and probably used those comments as the driving force to come down to Manly and forge a career down here.
That's what that was what I was getting to next. Is that did you have the shits over 3 years that you only played a handful of games? But I guess you kind of answered that already. And Matt Elliott, who I guess he played some games in the front row, and he was nice enough to come in on a previous episode. He seems like a really, really good bloke. I mean, what was that conversation like? Was he just up front and just told you brutally, this is how I see it, or?
Well, no, I mean, he said that, and I haven't really seen Matt since then. I remember I saw him 2005. We played Canberra down there, and we basically knocked them out. For the season, I played that game, and I remember seeing him at it was actually at a nightclub down there. I was out.
It wasn't Mooseheads, was it?
What's that?
Well, it wasn't Mooseheads.
I think it was called North Bar. It was the one that we always used to go to. Anyway, plenty of really good nights out there. But that was, I don't know. When I was there, I don't think I ever really performed. I was making up the numbers there. I think I needed to leave there, and I think that the 7 games that I played were justified. I played fantastic in Premier League as it was then, or reserve grade, and then just never really hit my straps in first grade there, and I always when he pulled me in, he had his opinion and I had mine, and I just decided to come down to to Manly. Had an opportunity to come down here for not a great deal of cash, but just an opportunity, and say la vie. But if Matt hadn't have said that to me, and I hadn't been able to use, I'm always better when I'm against someone, and and for that point in time, it was Matt. But some of the basic skills that I still try to even teach my young blokes footy team now come from Matt Elliott. He had a different way of doing it in terms of the way structure and passing and all this sort of stuff, which was really good. So no, I haven't actually caught up with him, but I'm sure I'll hopefully catch up with him at some stage and have a beer and have a laugh about yesteryear.
And what a decision it was to go to Manly, because all of a sudden you go from no footy to 16 games. Straight up at Manly in 2005. So did that make you feel good? And I guess not just prove to yourself, because I'm sure you were very confident in what you could do, but did it make you feel good that all of a sudden people looking at you saying, this bloke just played 16 games at Manly and he's making a difference?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny how it pans out. I mean, I came down to Manly and they paid me $250 a week for 10 weeks to do pre-season, and then I got a job pouring beers down at the Leagues Club. And I think it was around 9 maybe that I played first grade, something like that. Anyway, we played the West Tigers, and they were hot. That was 2005, so they were coming in, and actually Kitey and Jason King were out. So my first game for the Seagulls actually got to start, which I never thought would happen, and we won that game. Sorry to tell you, I know you're a West Tigers fan.
No, that's all right, mate. We still won the premiership. It's all right.
We won that game at home, which was awesome. And after a few games, you sort of you start to think, and I wanted to prove it to myself as well. Obviously, I thought I could do it, but until you get out there and show that you can consistently perform at that first grade level, then that's the goal. But 16 games in the first year was awesome, and certainly we made the finals that year. I didn't get picked in that finals team, which was probably lucky, because I think I still had a hangover from the week before on the pitch with the guys at the Raiders. I think we played them the last round, but that's all right. But it sort of set us up, and obviously re-signed after that down here, which was good.
When you look back on it, and I've mentioned this on many podcasts. Rugby League Project, a great website, and if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to go back and look at these things. But you roll into 2006, and you look back on it now in hindsight, and you actually look at Manly, where they came from in the early 2000s after the horrendous merge with the Bears. They come back, They call themselves Manly again. They get Hasler, then they get Kennedy, and the Stewart brothers start to develop, and then Lyon comes back from England. And Watmel comes through, And then there's this nucleus of players around them, like yourself and other blokes, that just build around the squad. And by 2006, it's another fantastic year for Manly. You guys improve on that again and finish 5th. And personally, that's your best year to date. And I don't know if you agree on that, but you play more games. And your first try in the NRL against the Storm at Brookvale, 34-12. Do you remember your try?
I actually don't.
You don't remember your try?
Who was it against again?
It was against the Storm, 34-12 at Brookvale. Big win.
Shit. Okay. Well, I remember I was scoring one against the top. Do you know what? You'd think that I'd remember them because I only scored 3 of the fucking things in my whole career. So Beaver's one of my best mates anyway, and so we catch up all the time for beers and stuff anyway, and that's my favourite thing is to say, how can you score 180 tries, you asshole, and I only score 3? But you know what? He was good at that. I was just good at, taking carries and all that sort of stuff. But, mate, it's that same thing. It's, now that I think back on it, it's amazing, to score a try in there is fantastic, and you're slowly, ticking off those goals. You hope to play one game, and then, then you play 5-10 games. You score a try. You play in a finals series, and then, we've got to play grand finals. It's it's pretty amazing, and great to do it in that in that team, and certainly against the Storm as well.
You guys are building. You're building. Unfortunately, in 2006, you get out of the Dragons in the finals. Like I think you touched on Trent Barrett and the Dragons, 28-0. But we've already spoken about 2007. You said there wasn't much said by Des or the team after the 2007 grand final. And I think in a team like that Manly squad, there was enough maturity there to say, you know what, we haven't got it done here. Probably beaten by a better team. Let's go again. In 2008, did Manly hold a grudge? And that's what started your year?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. You don't get embarrassed on national TV in front of 80,000 people and not come back and think, oh yeah, that's okay. I mean, yeah, we definitely did. We knew that we had more in us, and we trained our asses off. We had a massive pre-season. Obviously, we had a couple of new players come in, which was really good that complemented the team. But the nucleus of the side was the same. I just don't think, as I said before, I just don't think as a footballer and as a professional player, and certainly it's challenging your manhood to come back and show your worth. And I'm glad that we got an opportunity to do it. If you look at like Mick Monaghan and Chris Hicks, they signed for Warrington.
Yeah.
That year. Funny story. We actually met them in Las Vegas after we won the 2008 grand final and had a week there. And holy shit, you go into Vegas full of beans and you absolutely limp out. But they're great. They're great guys. And unfortunately, Hicksy's a great fella, and so is Bonners as well. But they went on to win Challenge Cups over with Warrington. And they definitely got their time and got to lift some silverware over there. But I felt for guys like that, they didn't get a chance to come back and I guess right those wrongs. But luckily the rest of us did.
2008, it's just at this period, I know we're harping on this Melbourne Manly thing, but it really was like the way we talk about it. It's just, it almost feels like, there were other teams in the comp, but Manly Melbourne was it. And in 2008, Orford wins the Dally M obviously at the end of the season. Brett Stewart, top scorer, 22 tries for him, top try scorer. But did you give yourself a moment to realise what you'd done since you moved to Manly? 95 games in 4 years after not getting a real crack at Canberra. It's a good time to be Mark Bryant.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it was good. I just sort of, prided myself on, trying to be there every week. I wanted to, play every game in that year, and only in 2008, I think it was maybe 2 games. One was injured, and the other, Desi's rotation. But but it was good, and I was extremely proud. And it gets better as you get older. The memories and the stories certainly get better because in the time you don't really realise it. Oh, great, I'm playing first grade, we're playing finals, we're playing grand finals. But it certainly was, especially after, taking, 7 games in 3 years in Canberra, to coming down here and playing 16 the first year, then, 25, and a couple of grand finals in the following, couple of years. So no, it was definitely something that, they look back on, with pride now.
Did you know 2008 was going to be your final season in the NRL? Because you moved on to the Super League after that. When did that all come about? What part of the season did you know that you were moving on?
It was probably mid-ish season. We started to talk contract-wise, and Des, we're playing the Broncos in Brisbane anyway, and it was a big game for us. And Des said, I'll talk to you after the weekend about, next year, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I was like, okay, yeah, no worries. And anyway, we went out there and we won, and we sat in his office, and Des just, he said, mate, we've got to, we have to look at, we've got similar age front rowers. We need to start bringing some other guys in. He said, you're off contract. He said, we don't want to let you go, but we sort of have to, which is fine. I remember, there's a few tears because, I obviously love the club, but, I left there, and Des and I had a bit of a hug in his office, and we just said, let's get on and get the job done. And I didn't want to leave, but certainly I didn't want to. I definitely didn't want to play against the Seagulls again. For another NRL team. So going overseas is something that I definitely wanted to do, and went over there at 28 because I wanted to make sure that I could still contribute. I wasn't going over there as for the last 1 or 2 years of my career. It was good times. But I knew that it was going to come at some stage, and I knew that Kyrie and Kingy and Josh, they just signed, and obviously Cuthbo was a young bloke coming through then as well. So I knew that at some stage I'd have to go, and took it on the chin, and ended up getting a deal overseas.
Round 5, 2008, you guys travelled to Olympic Park, as they called the graveyard at the time. Melbourne win 26-4. Now, look, I'm not saying that Brookvale Oval is the ANZ Stadium or anything like that, because I think it's pretty fair to say that Brookvale's probably on the lower rung of stadiums out there at the moment as well. But just quickly, could you explain what it was like as a visiting team going into the old Olympic Park, the graveyard in Melbourne, getting ready, going into the stadium, running out across the athletics track and having to play? It was a smaller field too, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, the end goals were really short. Brookvale's holy ground compared to that that shithole. But mate, it was. You know what? It was a tough place to play. And Melbourne were obviously playing really good. That game. I think I'm pretty positive Antonio Kafusi. I played with Kafusi overseas at London afterwards. I think the big bastard ran all over us and scored a try that day too. But mate, that was a good team, and it was just so open. It's not like it's not like the grounds that you see these days, like a Suncorp or a Bank West or anything like that. It was just it was a funny place to play at. Very hostile, even though they didn't. Their fans were building and building, but definitely interesting. An interesting ground to play at.
Round 22, Manly get you again 16-10. So by the finals, again, it's almost like Rocky and Apollo. I think in my last podcast on Hot Tub Rugby League Time Machine, I think I used another Rocky pun, but this was like Rocky versus Apollo in Rocky 2. You guys were just circling in the paddock, just going around each other. And then all of a sudden, in the finals, you guys smashed the Dragons again. And then on the Sunday, and I think it was Michael Witt, a former Manly player, scores a try, and like an idiot, stands in the end goal and almost gets the ball booted out of his hands. Could you guys believe that Melbourne got done? Were you watching that?
Well, do you know what? Like Whitty obviously played at Manly, but then I played 5 years. And Whitty signed over at the Crusaders as well, and then came to London. So I played 5 years with Whitty over there. And
well, I didn't mean to be rude to him.
Oh no! Don't worry. We've already asked him like, what the fuck were you doing? But that's just Whitty. That's just Whitty. But he, mate, it was pretty amazing to see, to be honest. And the funny thing is with Manly and grand finals, if you look at what we wore white jumpers in 2007, and we got done.
Yep.
We wore the maroon jumpers in 2008, and we won. 2011, they wore the maroon jumpers and won. 2013, 13.
13.
They wore, 13. Sorry, they wore the white jumpers.
Hey, 95. Manly wore a white jersey against Canterbury and got done.
It's exactly right,
Yeah.
And there's a reason too why the club never wears white jersey and white shorts, because we got pumped by Cronulla by about 60 points over at bloody Shark Park one night. But mate, funny how it how it works out. But bit of superstition going in there at the moment. But mate, it was surprising, and it was great, for us, because it was probably a little psychological thing for us. We knew that. We were going to get to wear, because we would have finished top. We get to pick the jumpers, so that's great. They got rolled. The Storm got rolled, which was just good to see, as a club that absolutely hated the Storm at that time. We loved seeing them getting done.
And then it gets better the next week, because the Storm and Broncos played a classic. And I think from memory, the one thing that sticks in my mind is I think Matt Geyer scores a try in the corner to win the game. Lockyer just throws his hands in the air. But during the game, Cameron Smith gets done for a chicken wing, I think it was.
Yeah, the chicken wing. Yeah, it was. Yeah, he got done for that.
All hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it did. Absolutely. It was an interesting time, that's for sure. I remember seeing Lockyer throw his hands up when that ball went loose and they scored. But we were preparing to have Cameron out there after the game was finished. The fact that he didn't that he got suspended, say la vie. That's just what happens. But it definitely was an interesting game. It was a very interesting couple of weeks for us sitting there, watching onto these games, because obviously we were going through and winning convincingly. So we thought it was going to be that it would be Melbourne that would get there and play, but they took a sort of alternate route to get to the big dance anyway.
The prelim finals, you guys smack Michael Witt's Warriors 32-6, and Melbourne just clinical against the Sharks 28-0. You guys get to grand final week. I felt, even at the time, and looking back, doing some research and looking at the grand final breakfast and everything else, it felt like Manly could smell blood in the water. And on top of that, it felt like there's some stress coming out of the Melbourne club. Brian Waldron was in some trouble for some comments he made. Craig Bellamy was making some comments that were un-Bellamy-like at the time. Could you guys smell it? Were you guys ready?
Yeah, I think that going into that week, the year before, the grand final breakfast and all the hype of the media, and then it was a night game in 2007, which is shit. You just sat around at home all day, whereas 2008 was we knew it was coming. We knew the grand final breakfast was there. We'd learnt lessons the year before, so headspace-wise, we were a lot more prepared. The fact that Melbourne had a loss and then a hard-fought victory, and Smith being suspended, I think it was all sort of swinging, in our favour. And certainly, as I said, we always under the radar with Des, and we kept our mouths shut and just knew the job that we had to do. And and so I remember that grand final breakfast, like it was yesterday. Sitting there with Beaver and Kingy and those guys, and remember watching the Storm walk in and just sort of eyeballing them and just knowing that we finally got the opportunity to go back at them, and have another crack and try and right the wrongs from the previous year.
Sorry, I just had myself off then. There's two things I remember about the grand final, and enough has been said about that grand final. We all know what happens, and I don't need to comment on this one, Mark, but I feel really sorry for Russell Aiken who had come into the team for Melbourne. But there's two things I remember from that grand final, and one sticks in my mind that I always talk to my brother about, the Manly fan, is how comfortable and relaxed you guys were on the field before the national anthem. You guys were in a huddle, and you're fucking cracking jokes. Glenn Hall's laughing his head off.
Yeah.
What were you talking about?
Hawley's a dickhead, that's why. Hawley probably said something stupid like Hawley does, but, you got Wolfman in there, and Wolfman just oozes confidence, and, and I don't know, like, we talked about, I don't know, we had a reunion for it, a few years back, but I can't remember what Hawley said that he was talking about. I'll have to ask him. You should have a chat to him. He'd be a good one for you to chat to as well.
He's played some front row, so he's eligible for the show.
He's a character. He's a good man. But mate, that's it. We just confidence was high. And we didn't have to be all serious like the year before, which probably burned up way more calories than what it should have. We knew what we had to do. And as I said, we played some pretty awesome footy in the finals and in the lead up to the grand final. So we're certainly confident that we could get out there and match it with them, and certainly hopefully be out there with a shot at it in the last little bit of the game.
The second half is a party. I mean, basically you guys have got it in the first half, but the second half is an absolute party. Steve Menzies gets a try. I think he got dragged or he got rested for the last little bit. And then something happened. I think Maddai went down again, and God bless Steve Maddai, the amount of injuries he had in his career. And he came off, and Menzies got sent back on, and he's just in the right place at the right time. He gets a try. What was it like, Beaver, like, of all Manly players, for the new generation, for anyone born from, 1980 on, Steve Menzies is a freak. And
absolutely.
I mean, what was it like when Menzies scored? You guys are already up by 1,000.
Oh, mate, up by 1,000. But for him and for who he is, the bloke he is, and for what he's done in the game and for the club, it was phenomenal. The funny story about that was I was just about to go back on, and I think Kingy was about to come off for a rest, but Stevie hurt his neck, and there's no way in hell that a front row is going into the centres.
So it could have been your try.
Yeah, no, fuck no. No, I actually make the joke. I say, listen, Robbo, you're lucky that Robbo was there. He probably should have scored 4, but he gave it to you because you were going and he felt sorry for you. Just a bit of there's always a jab here and there. But, mate, and the thing is with Robbo, no one could have scored that try besides Beaver. Back and forward, ding, 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 and put it down. I think Brett Stewart hit him that hard when he jumped on him. It was hilarious. But, mate, I was so happy and proud to watch Beav get a try. He deserves it. He deserved that send-off and that try, and the way that it all went down, just because of the bloke that he is, the freak of nature that he was on the field, but just the way that he's carried himself, throughout his career. He's one of those guys that's definitely deserving of that sort of send-off.
Look, this is not on my run sheet. This is just out of nowhere. So I want to ask you a question from left field. I mean, when you think about it, have you ever considered the fact that if you were given more of a run at Canberra and given a little bit more time, that you may have spent 10, 12 years at Canberra and been a club legend at Canberra and never got to Manly? Do you ever think about any of that stuff, or is it just...
I don't know, not really. Hey, I don't know. I think it was just, it's that sliding doors sort of thing, and the stars aligned for me to come here, and Des, they wanted to add some depth in their forward pack and in the front row, and I could pass the footy and that sort of thing, whereas none of the other guys, really could that sort of tip on sort of footy and things like that, and he saw that and liked it. I don't know, and I think that the team we had. I remember sitting with Ben Kennedy, funnily enough, at the Stain Hotel, pretty pissed in 2005. Anyway, just after I made my debut for the Seagulls, and BK saying, pissed, going, I do not want to see you out of first grade this year. If you get dropped, I'm going to fucking kick your ass. Or, something along those lines.
That's Ben Kennedy. That's Ben Kennedy, right? Like, you listen to Ben Kennedy.
Yeah, absolutely. And although I had great mates at Canberra, I just don't think that I ever would have got to there with them, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think that the right environment, the right coach, definitely the right team. Great part of the world too, just quietly. But I don't know. To be honest, I don't really think of it like that. I was proud of my time in Canberra, and certainly it's got some memories. But I think that gave me the drive to head to Manly and actually make a career and out of footy.
Mate, look, I know that you're very patriotic about the Northern Beaches these days, Mark, and coming from a proud Westie, there's a couple of things that we won't come over to the North Shore over the ferry for anymore. The penguins aren't called ferry penguins anymore, and your aquarium's closed.
That's true,
mate. So there's no reason to come over anymore.
Have you ever had a schooner at the wharf bar? It's awesome.
Is that
Hugo?
the Bavarian?
Mate.
No, the Bavarian. Which one's the one right on the wharf?
The Bavarian. Actually, I've got a.
That's as far as I get in.
About Ben Kennedy there on a Mad Monday drinking litres of beer. But anyway, mate, it's a great part of the world. Like after you've lived here, it is. And obviously, my wife and I got 2 kids here now. My wife's got a business up at Newport. I'm a real estate agent, and it's mate, it's a great part of the world. But I can't see myself living anywhere else. But mate, you should definitely come over. There's nothing like a couple of cold beers, whether it's a Stain or mate. There's so many good pubs over here and good places to eat. Just mate, a long cab ride home.
I'm just joking. I sat over at a hotel. I stayed there about 6 months ago, and you walk out of the reception down the steps, and you're right on Manly Beach. It's literally facing. I can't remember what it's called, but it's
the Novotel.
It must be the Novotel.
Manly Pacific. Yeah.
Beautiful spot. And I went out there on a Monday night just by myself, put the jeans on a Monday night, and I can't remember what the pub was. It's right around the corner. There's a kebab shop right next to us. Next block down, I can't remember what the pub's called, but it was going off on a Monday night. And it said, "You beauty."
Yeah, that's a Stain. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There it is. Let's move on because I just forgot that we're recording, and I thought I was talking to a mate on the phone. So you're off to the Crusaders in 2009. What a shit show this is. Mate,
shit show. It was. Oh my god! It was the biggest clusterfuck you've ever seen in your life.
Club in debt. Players still owed. Are you still owed money by the club?
Yeah. Probably about £70,000.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, shit for it. I mean, I've written that off, for a few reasons. But yeah, mate, it was my wife actually. We found out my wife, and it was actually when we were at London that she had cervical cancer. So we went through chemo and radiotherapy and surgery and everything over there. And we're lucky we were at London at the time. But mate, for that it was at the NHS and it was all covered. Didn't have to pay anything. So for me, I just wrote that off and still got my wife and my children. So I'm happy with that, mate. But yeah, it was some great guys that I'd played footy with over there, and they were all excited. But they just didn't recruit the way they should have. But probably similar to what the London Broncos did in the end. They should have recruited the right coach and then got the players in behind them. John Dixon, lovely guy. Had a lot of great guys over there, and Jace Van Dyke and Josh Henne was there. Darren Mapp, some great first grade experience in amongst them, and some really good, footballers. But the owner was a crook, and I tell you, we had some great nights on the piss in Wales. We went from the NRL premiers to the to the wooden spoon in 2009.
Yeah, and I think Adam Peake is still on Twitter going mad about it. So good on Peaky for...
Adam John. He's a good... But the funny thing was, it was Peaky and I all the time in there trying to fight and trying to get the union into it and all this sort of stuff.
He's still going. He's still going.
Is he still going?
He's on Twitter. He's still going mad about it. And good on him.
Yeah, well, I mean, absolutely. You know what? They did. They lied. The RFL lied. The players' union over there was shit. And they basically we were forced into a deal where we had to take a deal, and that guaranteed us nothing. And just that they would, but Mate, it is what it is. Now I don't give it any other thought really, just simply because we're just looking forward, not looking backwards. And as I said, I had some reasons for writing that off, and I did. But Peaky's a good man. I like Peaky. We got on really good. He's a tough bastard too, old Peaky. Picked a fight with Jamie Peacock in our first game just to show he wasn't scared of any of the bombs. So yeah, he's a good man. He's a good man, Peaky.
The other thing I know too, at the back end of your career at London, which you just touched on, 2 seasons there, but you played 59 games. What I've noticed going back through your career, Mark, is that once you got your start or your real start at Manly, is that your longevity season to season as a front rower was amazing. Are you proud of that you could churn out so many games year to year?
Yeah, no, it definitely was. And, I think I had the record there at one stage for the most consecutive Super League games, which is about 81, I think. And, it was good. I had to, I guess when I went over there, I played a lot of my footy off the bench, and I had here for the Seagulls, and I had my role there that I had to play. And, going over there, I wanted to be the starting front rower, and certainly I wanted to change it up. So I went from playing, it could be anywhere from 25 to 30, 40 minutes a game to playing sort of 60, 70 minutes. So it was a test and it was a challenge, and and it was good, and I enjoyed it. I like playing weekend. I love playing footy. It's great. And even now when you're retired, you just miss belting people and running. You just miss the game. And certainly over there, you played a lot of footy in a year, and I love playing as many games as what I could.
Now look, from one salesman to another, I can tell from a mile away that you're a great talker, and you're very easy to speak to about your career and everything else. For people that don't know, what's Mark Bryant up to these days?
Well, I'm a real estate agent and auctioneer. I got into that.
Plug it all. Plug the websites. Plug everything.
I work for a company called Cunningham's on the Northern Beaches, and a great company, family-run business. John Cunningham, the nicest guy you'll ever meet in real estate. I got into that. I actually did, funny enough, another story. Ben Kennedy and I started our real estate courses at the same time.
Yep.
BK dropped out because he got the shits with it. I did it 2 or 3 nights a week part time at Brookvale TAFE. Took me 3 years to get it. Got it I actually got it signed off the Thursday before the 2008 grand final.
Yeah, right.
A lovely lady. I won't say her name because I think she might have ticked off a couple of things for me. She just goes, yeah, you know that, which was great, which was awesome because we were playing in the grand final. Because I just knew that, whether we won or whether we lost, we were going to get on the piss for a week, and then a month later I was off to England. So. Mate, real estate, auctioneering. I started up the Manly Warringah Golden Eagles Association.
Yeah, that's the other thing I want to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, so we do a lot of work. Yeah, it's going really good. We started, Manly obviously being a political minefield back in the day, and we came right up the centre of it because, the ex-players just weren't getting the acknowledgement that I think they deserved. And I think the younger guys, when you come into first grade, the older guys look after the young guys. And I think when you retire, I think it's the newly retired guys, the younger guys that need to look after those older blokes. And certainly the relationship that I had with the club and a lot of the ex-players, we started it, and we've got about 400 members now. We work closely with the club. I'm an ambassador for the club. More so just around, bringing guys in, and, there's so many awesome players that played throughout the years that, left on, probably not the best terms and that sort of thing. I wanted to make sure that, that everyone gets back in touch and, people stick together, and, we always catch up for a beer. And, we've got our Golden Eagles Day. We had 180 ex-players there last year down at Brookvale. So it's a special day, and, we've got some big things coming next year as well, thanks to, Luke Tucker, who's the CMO out at the Seagulls now, and Stephen Humphries, who's, of course, the CEO there. So, yeah, some good things happening for that, which is awesome.
Time heals all wounds, Mark.
Absolutely, and we made it so that it's not just, just first grade players only was always that was the thing. So we threw that out the door and made it first grade, reserve grade, and third grade or flag, because at the end of the day, when the bright lights go out, no one cares how many first grade games you've played. There's so many awesome characters that you played reserve grade with and you came through the ranks with. And trainers, strappers, coaches, admin staff, all this sort of stuff. We just want, through the glory years, especially at the Sea Eagles, there's so many great blokes in there. So, we want them all to be a part of it. They put in a lot of hours and stuff, and as well as the players. So it's a good thing that we've got going, and we're looking to build on that more and more, and definitely get in touch with as many ex-players as we can from the Sea Eagles to get back in touch, so we can keep in touch with you and make our reunions a bigger weekend on the piss year after year after year.
Well, just a spoiler for all our listeners out there, if the next 10 props on top of the props are all for Manly, it's Mark Bryant's fault. All right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing wrong with that.
I don't give a shit. Mate, mate, as long as they've got a story to tell, I'm here to let them tell their story. So, Mark, thank you very much. I think I said to you off air that usually takes about 40, 45 minutes, but if you're having fun, it goes over an hour. We're up to an hour 5. We've done well.
We can talk shit.
Mark, thank you very much. You're a gentleman, and you're very good at, obviously telling your career, but also talking about the careers of other people that helped you too. And it's been great speaking to you, and we'll get you on the show again very, very soon.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.